So we just got our first look at the DMZ mode in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. There was an in-person event out in LA where some streamers got to play the DMZ for 2 hours. There is a lot to get through. There are a lot of questions that we still don't have answered. So we're just going to dive right into it, and I'll save my thoughts for it towards the end. But hopping right in, it looks like there's going to be a party size of 3, but there were some screens that made it look like there could be a party size of 6, and it kind of looks like you can only queue in with 3 people, but in Raid, you can actually VoIP at people and somehow figure out a way to invite them to your party and end up with a squad of 6. It feels like you can only do that once you're in a raid, but as far as queuing in, you can only queue in with a max party of 3. There's supposed to be 64 players on the map. It is the entire El Mazrah map, and it looks like there's 64 players and then a ton of AI anywhere, but I think you can queue in with less players than that, but I think the max is 64. Also in the HUD area, you can see that there are missions and there are factions. There are 3 different factions. Each of those factions give you different missions, and we didn't get to see a whole lot of this because everybody was just kind of running and gunning, trying to get into as much action as possible, but you can see these missions do give you XP. They do give you some rewards. It looks like some of them give you blueprints for weapons. We're not sure how that works, where if it's just a weapon that you get for free, that you can use one time, that you can buy with money. And then there's also contraband, which we'll get into in a little bit. And it looks like there's a lot of quests that once you unlock these quests, you get more quests and you can rank up the factions. Obviously, we don't know what the long-term progression of that is and what you get for ranking up the factions and stuff like that. But there are missions. You can select 3 that will show up on your HUD. You'll see them on the side, and you can complete those while you're in the raids. You can choose your own operator, so all the skins and all the different operators, just like you can with the regular Call of Duty. Once we get to the stash, things get a little bit interesting. Up at the top, you can see there's armor, gas mask, kill streak, and self-revive. And it looks like these things persist. So once you pick up a gas mask, you'll have it for your next raid. Once you pick up a kill streak, if you haven't used it, we're not 100% sure. The armor plate kit, it looks like you can get ones that hold more plates, similar to how you can in Warzone. But those are all up there at the top. They're kind of like separate from your inventory. You've got a backpack. There's a standard backpack you get for every single raid. And then you can actually get medium-sized backpacks and large-sized backpacks that allow you to take more stuff. What we saw, from what I personally saw, I saw that the large backpack also had an additional gun slot, so you can take an additional gun out, but I'm not sure about the medium-sized bag. There's a little insurance thing here, and when you click on this, it basically brings you to the gunsmith, where you can actually kind of like create a weapon based on what you've unlocked in multiplayer or Warzone or everything. This is interesting. People are saying this is almost kind of like your scav timer in Tarkov, where this is on cooldown. You can't just use this to get a free meta weapon every single time, but there isn't a lot of flavor text here telling you how often this can happen, and a lot of people didn't really realize what this was until the end, because their accounts actually had some guns, so those were the guns that they were using. But there's an insurance thing here that kind of ends up having more questions than answers. Contraband is basically what's in your stash. So contraband is guns that you brought out of a raid that you can then put in your inventory and save to use for another raid. You can kind of dismantle the contraband if your stash is getting too big. It looks like there's 20 slots. We're not sure if you're going to be able to expand those things or not, but it's there. And then there's also a key inventory as well. It looks like you can hold up to 20 keys in your external inventory. And that's kind of like a breakdown of the menu and what you see out of raid once you get in raid. So it is the full El Mazrah map that we are getting for Warzone 2. The full map, it's got a 25-minute timer when you start the raid that you can see up in the top left underneath the minimap. And based on what we can tell, after this 25-minute timer runs out, a zone starts to close in, a nuclear radiation zone similar to Warzone, and that has about another 8-minute timer. So 25 minutes, then the zone starts pushing people in, and you have to start getting to your extract or the zone is going to force you in, and that's got another 8 minutes as well. It's kind of your classic Call of Duty. You've got the markers over your teammates and stuff like that, and as far as we could tell, there was no friendly fire. It didn't seem like there was, at least. Additionally, it seems like it has adopted a similar armor plate system to Warzone. So you've got a few plate slots, you can pick up plates, you can save extra plates to use later. This helps to increase the time to kill a little bit. In the multiplayer, the time to kill is really, really quick. These armor plates definitely increase it a little bit, but we'll see how that kind of balances out as we go. There are lootable items all over the place. Light bulbs, screwdrivers, little stuff. You can find cash. And from the best we could tell, this is basically an entire in-raid economy where you can pick up a bunch of random stuff that doesn't really have any use. From what we could tell, there wasn't any crafting element like there was in the campaign or anything. You basically bring this stuff to a buy station. You can sell these miscellaneous items you have. You can sell the guns, extra guns that you've picked up off of AI or something, and then you can use that money to buy things right there from the buy station. It looks like there's 2 main categories of things you can buy. You can buy gear and you can buy contraband. Under the gear, you could purchase armor plates, munition boxes, gas masks, a medium backpack, a bomb drone, an LTV with turret, a self-revive kit, and a 2-plate armor vest. And then the contraband, it looks like you can buy some guns. It didn't look like you could buy specific loadouts that you've made in Warzone or in the regular multiplayer Call of Duty. And then, like we said, you can sell the different items here. I didn't actually notice this until I was editing the video, but as you can see on the right, it says that there's different gear at each buy station. So I'm assuming that means different guns under the contraband and different gear that you can purchase under the gear tab, which could be interesting and add some RNG if you're looking for a very specific item. So it seems like as far as cash is concerned, it's all kind of like encapsulated in raid. Outside of the raid in the lobby, we didn't see any traders, we didn't see any market, we didn't see any reason to have money or to spend money outside of a raid. But in a raid, you go around, you loot up, you sell some stuff, you find some guns, you sell some stuff, and then you either buy specific guns that you want or you buy some upgrades. So it seems like an entirely in-raid loop. And there's even some extremely valuable stuff you can find. Somebody found some gold bars that were worth like $8,000. There's kind of like a dog tag equivalent where if you kill an enemy player and you can actually pick up kind of their dog tag and then sell that for $5,000. So those are some ways where you can actually make a ton of money pretty quickly, and PvP would be a part of that. If you were up a 3-man team, that's $15,000. As you can see, you can buy things like self-revive kits, and a lot of the core functionality feels like Warzone. It feels like a Call of Duty. When you get shot, you go down, you can be revived, you can use a self-revive kit to get up. It doesn't look like there were respawns. Like in Warzone, if you actually get fully knocked, you can go and buy a respawn for your friend. I didn't actually see any of these situations go down, but it seems like when you get knocked and then when you go down, you're dead and you're just spectating your teammate for the rest of the raid. This could change, or it could be something that I personally didn't just see, but it didn't seem like we have that. As far as AI goes, there are AI all over the map. And at the beginning, it really felt like they were just kind of the pushover AI that we see in the ground war, but things really start to escalate. In some of the strongholds, some of the bosses, the AI was crazy, and just 1v1 and AI was taking down some of these players. They hurt really hard. They've got a lot of ammo. They kind of move around. We saw tripwires and stuff like that, where some of the strongholds were actually booby trapped. There's riot shields that they're used. It definitely has the derpy AI, and some of them really don't feel like they're kind of firing on all cylinders. But there is a variation there where the AI isn't just something you can shrug off. Maybe outside in general, when the helicopters come in, when vehicles pull up, those guys you don't have to worry about too much. But some of the boss AI and some of the more armored AI seem like they can really actually pose a threat to you. Just like they've been talking about a lot, that's going to be in Warzone and DMZ, there are these strongholds. You can find keys and open these strongholds. They have weapon safes in them. There's bosses. There's all sorts of guards. The AI strongholds seem to be really crazy, but the loot from what we saw didn't seem to be anything absolutely extravagant. Yes, they all have pretty decent guns, but as we'll talk about in a minute, there isn't really an overwhelming reason to pick up a bunch of guns. There isn't a way to pick up a bunch of guns to go sell them. I'm still concerned and interested in what the loot is in these strongholds. They've said many, many times that that's where the loot is, that people are going to be contesting over these strongholds. But from what we saw, we went in, there was like cool animations where you're busting open a safe and this alarm was blaring and it was calling in more AI, and then it busted open this thing and there were some guns, and most people just left that stuff behind because they wanted their primary weapon and they were already full with their inventories as well. So like we said, still a lot of questions. Obviously, everybody was just trying to get in and, absorb as much as they can. So there was probably a lot that we missed, but that's kind of how the AI functions. We saw some really cool things like kill streaks, like UAV that activated as soon as it picked up. There were towers that you can go and kind of like hack into, and then that sets off a UAV as well. Vehicles are a huge part of this mode. We saw enemy helicopters. I didn't see any actual players flying helicopters, but there's, the four-wheelers, there's the big armored vehicles, there's tanks, there's boats with turrets on them. The boats not only have HP, but they also have fuel, so you can find fuel and then fuel these things up if you want to get from one side of the map to the other. We saw a lot of medical items like bandages and radiation pills, but we didn't see anybody using those items. The medical system is a lot like Warzone, where you get hit. If you get behind cover, your HP fills back up, and then you put some plates in. I'm not sure if they're going to expand this medical gameplay, if the radiation pills help with the radiation zone, because we know we have the gas mask. We're not sure. Right now, those things just kind of felt like sellable items, but maybe you can use those items as well. So as far as keys go, like we said, there's a key inventory, and it looks like every key has a certain amount of uses. It looked like keys have about 3 or 4 uses. Some of them felt like single-use keys. Some of them felt like it was just like a stronghold key, and there's strongholds all over the map. So maybe that key will unlock any stronghold, and you can go to whichever one you want. But then we found keys that actually had text and said, it unlocked, this building at this POI, and you have to go there, and that key has a few uses. So those might be the keys where, like, if you find a few of them, you chuck them in your stash, and you always have that key on you if you want to do like loot runs to that specific place. Once you get inside a building, it looks like you can unlock the rest of the doors from the inside without having to use the key. But if you want to just go in and out the same door, maybe the rest of the players might not know that they've unlocked that and they have to use a key as well. And here's where we saw, like we said, the tripwires and the booby trapping and stuff like that. But it definitely looks like keys are going to play a big part in this. There were a lot of strongholds. There were a lot of loot rooms that had keys. Once again, like we'll talk about, it just didn't feel like there was an overwhelming reason to get that loot and take it out. Like we said before, you can get the bigger backpacks, and the backpacks just look like they have slots where you can just pick up items. Some of the items stack. If you want extra ammo, you have to put them in your backpack. The backpacks are very small. And it wasn't until we saw like one of the large backpacks where there was an opportunity to take out an additional gun. But that's kind of how they function right now. It looks like 4, the medium maybe 6, the large 8 slots, and the large one has a place for you to take out an extra weapon. The map seems to have a ton of things to do on it. We were watching Dr. Lupo and they found a boat. And when they got on the boat, it said, hey, if you bring the cargo on this boat to this place, you'll get a bunch of money. They started driving the boat along the river to get to the place. A helicopter swooped in, started shooting at them. They were shooting back at the helicopter. They got the boat to the place. There was a helicopter waiting for them. It extracted the cargo that was on the boat, and then they got $5,000. And so it seems like there's a ton of things to do on the map. When you look at the legend of the map, there's so many different points of interest. There's radiated zones, there's buy stations, there's strongholds, there's, police buildings with loot in them. There's quests that you can do for the factions. There's dynamic quests like the boat one was. There's Juggernaut. It shows you if a boss is on the map. You can see the extractions. It seems like the map is really, really populated, and there's always something to do if you want to. Now, a huge core gameplay element of this mode is the extractions. And what it looks like is that there are 3 extractions and that everybody has the same extractions. Every time we saw any team get to that extraction, it really, really kind of became a hugely intense, just all-out battle. There's AI everywhere. There's multiple teams rolling up, and it looks like you are going to have to fight your way out. There are 3 extractions, so it's not everybody arriving at the same place. You can take these extractions whenever you want. It seems like you don't have to wait for the zone to close in or anything like that, but they were definitely hot zones, and it seems like that maybe only 3 teams can extract. I don't know if you can call the extractions back in after they've been called, but it is confirmed that everybody shares extractions. There's 3 spread out on the map, and they absolutely get intense. So that's kind of summary of everything that I saw, everything that I noted down. The big question, though, is why do it? Why extract? It seemed like during the event, every time a team extracted, their game bugged out. They had to alt F4 the game. Obviously, people were trying to get as much game time as possible. So a lot of these people were just like flying through the menus. I didn't really see any reason to extract. You can maybe get out with 1 or 2 guns. If you wanted to take 2 guns in, a sniper and an SMG, at best, you could get a large backpack, get 1 extra gun out, and then put that in your inventory as contraband to use for future matches. There's still a lot of questions about what the progression is, about leveling up the factions, the faction traders, if there's a reason to level those up. There were leaks that kind of insinuated a player economy. We didn't see any sort of economy. We didn't see any sort of market. We didn't see any ability to purchase anything, really. We saw a few people go through all the guns in their stash, and they actually had to drop in with their fists. Once again, we're not sure how the insurance slot works, but there were a few times where Landmark just had to drop in and all he had was fists, and the teammate had to drop him a gun, or he had to go find a throwing knife, kill an AI, pick up their gun, and go from there. So I think that's the biggest question at the end of the day is like, what's the reason to extract? What do I get when I extract these crazy gun safes or these weapon boxes that I get off these bosses? That felt like the thing that we saw the least, and that is what I have the biggest question of. My overall thoughts of the mode in general was it's absolutely Call of Duty. It's not Escape from Tarkov. If you thought it was going to be Escape from Tarkov, I think you were misled. It's going to play like a Call of Duty game. However, it's got the extraction flair that those games have, and it looks really fun. There's lots of things to do on the map. There's constant action. You can kind of move in or away from points of interest if you want PvP or not. There were a lot of quests to unlock, a lot of things to do, but what we didn't see is an overwhelming reason to do it, where you're really grinding up a cash flow so you can buy really good items, where You can fill your stash with all these guns that you can use. We don't know what that side of it is yet, and we don't know if maybe there were parts of the game that weren't shown in this little playtest. It looks like we're just going to have to wait a week to get our hands on it and really get in there. So ultimately, that's it. That was kind of just like the information dump of everything we saw during those 2 hours. They pulled back the curtain. We got a really quick glimpse, and there are still a lot of questions to be had. Next week, once we get into it and get our hands on it, if I feel like there's a lot there, then I definitely want to make either some loot guides or some specific videos about some of the systems of the game, and we can dive into it further. But let me know down in the comments what you thought. Are you excited for the DMZ? Do you want some of these questions answered? Or is it not really for you and you're excited for Warzone or to grind out some of the multiplayer? Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video. If you like the video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream over on Twitch about 6 days a week, mostly Escape from Tarkov content, but if DMZ has some meat on its bones, then I'll definitely be covering DMZ more here and on that channel as well. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.